Hey, it's Drew Bennett from Big Damn Kid, and it is the conclusion of the 4-part limited series, G.I. Joe and the Transformers. Here it is, issue number 4. We've got Power Station Alpha there. We got Omega Supreme, and Superion, and Blaster, Serpentor, General Hawk, Scarlett. So we've got G.I. Joe, and Cobra, and the Autobots. They have just decided to become allies and band together against the Decepticons in this issue titled All Fall Down. So we're in the Ark, and we've got some of the Autobots. They're giving exposition as to why they're here and what has gone before. Basically, the Decepticons have captured Power Station Alpha, and they are using it to go to strategic locations around the Earth and cause havoc. So we're getting tidal waves and earthquakes and things like that. So earthquakes are happening right here. Serpentor has formed an alliance with the Autobots, and therefore G.I. Joe is also forming an alliance with the Autobots and Cobra for a 3-pronged attack and mission to stop the Power Station Alpha and stop the Decepticons. So we've got that going on in the Ark. That continues on for a little bit, where we're talking about what's happening here. They've made some changes to Power Station Alpha. Here was the original, and here is after the Decepticons made some changes. They put a big giant drill on it, because in almost everything that happens with G.I. Joe and Transformers, you know, somebody's got to drill underneath the Earth and get to that magma core. And so we've got some things happening around the world already, and the Autobots and Cobra and G.I. Joe are trying to figure out what it is they should do to stop Power Station Alpha and how they can stop Power Station Alpha. So we cut over to the Decepticon base. At the Decepticon base, Shockwave tells Bombshell that, you know, it's time that we get rid of our human there from Cobra. It's time to get rid of him altogether. So Bombshell comes in and he says, I could blow you away, but what I'd rather do is shoot you with the Cerebro shell and have you rip off your own arms. That's harsh, Bombshell. That's harsh. Well, he doesn't have the chance to, because Bombshell gets blasted with electricity, and we find that Dr. Mindbender is saved by the Baroness carrying one kick-ass weapon, which basically turned Bombshell, made him go to insect mode, and so they escape. Dr. Mindbender takes Bombshell with him. They escape in a Rattler, and they're headed to the Fort Lewis, where they're going to rendezvous with some other G.I. Joe characters. So at Fort Lewis, that's where we have most of the Joes. That's where they have the body of Bumblebee, which they discovered last issue. Bumblebee is not dead. Bumblebee is in fact alive. And so, because now they have this new alliance, the Autobots have sent Ratchet. They've sent Ratchet in, and Ratchet and Mainframe. Mainframe tells Ratchet that Bumblebee is actually alive, and he shows Ratchet in the next page here. He shows Ratchet what Bumblebee, you know, how Bumblebee looks, but not quite yet. Not quite yet. Because in between that, Dr. Mindbender and the Baroness arrive, and we get, you know, Dr. Mindbender sees that everyone's looking at him with quite disgust, and we get a little tie-in with what happened at G.I. Joe Yearbook number 3, where he hooked up Snake-Eyes to the brainwave scanner. So obviously he's not going to be happy with him. Dr. Mindbender nonchalantly puts the Insecticon down on some bench, where Mainframe at the same exact time is poking around with the Cerebro shell. Dr. Mindbender sees that happening and was like, no, stop, wait a minute. Oh. Yeah, here's what Bumblebee looks like now. Sorry, I must have got mixed up with the page there. Anyway, he pushes on the Cerebro shell, just poking around at it, and all of a sudden, Bombshell transforms, smashes that bench, and Mainframe. Well, if that happened, why don't I poke it again? So he goes and he pokes it again, and Bombshell turns into this kind of almost looks like a. Almost looks a little bit like Perceptor, like a microscope there, and he gets stuck in this configuration. So they poke around at it for a bit, And we'll see what they do with Bombshell. Probably nothing. So we continue on, and Hawk is moping around Arlington. He ends up at the Pentagon, and they bring him up to speed at the Pentagon. They've been waiting for him because they want to, what's happening with Power Station Alpha. So they bring him up to speed with Power Station Alpha, and Hawk gets on the phone with the Ark, where he's talking with Serpentor and Blaster, and the three of them have to decide what to do about Power Station Alpha. Now, Serpentor just wants it blown up and, get rid of it and we'd be done with it. Blaster says, what if the Decepticons gave it some intelligence and life? And Hawk is concerned if it gets blown up, make sure that it's away from civilians. Serpentor, what's that amount of casualties as opposed to the entire world getting destroyed? And, the same with Blaster. What's one, machine life, which, they all believe it's just a mindless machine. So they have to come to an agreement before they can actually set a plan into motion. Meanwhile, to keep themselves busy, we got Ratchet with Mainframe, and they're working further on Bumblebee. And so they finally finish Bumblebee up. He looks good as new, better than new even. He even has like a new head and a new face. And Bumblebee decides that with all these new changes, he's going to change his name. He's going to change his name now to Goldbug, because that commands more respect than Bumblebee. So he's now Goldbug. Okay. And so in between that, Hawk and Serpentor and Blaster, they come to an agreement that Power Station Alpha has probably only been given limited intelligence to make its way around the world and commit all of its acts to set things into motion to destroy the Earth. So what they're going to do is they're going to send out a two-woman team with a small vehicle to intercept Power Station Alpha and plant some explosives on it. And meanwhile, Dr. Mindbender is going to be able to, he's going to help in gaining control over Power Station Alpha. He also mentions, what's to stop the Decepticons from coming after them and stopping that plan? Well, what's to stop it is a three-pronged attack from G.I. Joe, Cobra, and the Transformers, Autobots, on the Decepticon base. So I love this shot where you got Jetfire and the aerial bots, and you've got Ace and Slipstream and Wild Bill, and then you got the Cobra Rattlers and all the other Cobra vehicles there. I can only seem to recall the Cobra Rattler as far as the vehicles. I forget what their helicopters are called. But anyway, all these guys are coming here above Decepticon base, and on the Decepticon base, it looks like they're just under construction. It can't possibly be the Decepticon base, but it is. And here is where, when you have two comic books coming together, there's some continuity problems. And in this issue, the continuity problems come in this particular panel right here, where Shockwave calls for Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Thrust, and Ramjet to attack. You get 8 jets coming out. There are only 6 jets on the Earth right now, and 3 of those, actually 4 of those, are now in the Ark because they got attacked and destroyed. 3 of them by Omega Supreme and 1 of them by Serpentor in the last issue. So where are these 8 jets coming from when there should only be 2? And so there's some continuity problems there. The Constructicons combine and they form Devastator, and they launch off into the air. Now we catch up with the mini strike team, which is Scarlett, the Baroness, and Goldbug. Sorry, hey, you changed your name just 2 panels ago. I gotta try to remember that. So Bumblebee is, I did it again. Goldbug and the 2 top women from G.I. Joe and Cobra are going after Power Station Alpha. And meanwhile, back at Fort Lewis, Dr. Mindbender has his cybernetic, it's the cybernetic helmet, but he also has the Cerebro shell from Bombshell and they're going to retrofit that, and they're going to like reverse engineer it so that his cybernetic helmet and the Cerebro shell are going to be able to connect with Power Station Alpha, so they can take control over Power Station Alpha and stop, the end of the world. We're jumping back and forth and back and forth. We head back to the firefight where the aerial bots see Devastator coming. They change into Superion. They fight Superion, and the rest of the Joes, they're fighting the Seekers. So I guess they must have put them all in so that the Joes would have something to do, since they couldn't really only fight 2 of the Decepticons that were airborne. I don't know exactly when in the comics, or if they'll ever address the Decepticons that are still in the Ark, because they were attacked by and destroyed by Omega Supreme, or basically incapacitated by Omega Supreme. But we'll see. So the Joes are watching this fight happen. They're going to avoid the 2 big guys. Devastator blasts Superion head on, right there in the chest, and we'll see what happens in another couple pages. But the Joes, they're attacking. Let's see, they're attacking some of the Seekers, and yeah, they even down Ramjet. Serpentor, he's joining in the fray there, and meanwhile, Shockwave, who is, at some point has some sort of delusions of grandeur like Megatron, saying that they'll be completely victorious. Like, he's not even realizing that any of this fighting that's happening and all of his guys that are getting destroyed, that doesn't matter. Power Station Alpha is out there, and it's doing its work, and I will turn the Earth into a giant battery. And so they get back to Power Station Alpha, where the strike team is. The ladies shoot grappling hooks. They get up onto Power Station Alpha, and they plant some explosives. Okay, so some explosives are being planted there on Power Station Alpha. They get the job done. They give the call back to Dr. Mindbender, who puts on his cybernetic helmet, and he takes control of Power Station Alpha. Pulls in the destructive parts of it and then shoots it off into the sky. So it launches off into the sky. Oh, when they made the changes by the Decepticons, they decided to put a Decepticon, insignia on it. Well, that was nice of them. A little bit of decals and such. Let's spruce it up. Basically, pimp my power station. And so Scarlett and the Baroness, they end up talking. The Baroness has set the timers on the explosives. She's going to have it blown up anyway. Doesn't care what Joe's wanted. That's what her orders were. She's setting the timers because Power Station Alpha is going to blow up. It's up into the atmosphere, and it explodes. And I remember that kid Tony who had the Cerebro shell implanted? Well, it looks like his hair grew back pretty quickly, and he sees the explosion overhead, and he goes to tell his mother. Back on the Decepticon base, nothing. With that point-blank shot on Superion, nothing happened to him. He's perfectly fine. He blasts Devastator, which makes them, the Constructicons, go back into their component forms. And meanwhile, Serpentor gets a message from the Baroness that Power Station Alpha has been destroyed. Serpentor pulls out all of the Cobra forces. We're not going to fight the Decepticons anymore. We're taking off. Our part in this is done. Our alliance is over. We've broken off all ties with G.I. Joe and the Autobots. We're gone. And Blaster, he sees this. The Joes radio back to him, ask him, hey, what should we do? Should we continue on? And he says, no, just break off the attack. And he sees that, they blew up Power Station Alpha without any consultation with the Autobots, against our wishes. How can we trust humans again? And so the Joes head for home. Mindbender takes off while Ratchet, who obviously doesn't share the same thoughts as Blaster, is thrilled that Power Station Alpha got destroyed and they've won and they've accomplished their mission, which gives Mindbender a time to scurry out of there. Now there's a bit of an epilogue at the end of this, which I thought was kind of just dumb. In all honesty, it's hard to tell exactly who did what and how a certain thing happened on this particular page, but basically Hawk goes to see Senator Barbara Larkin, who has, basically betrayed her people by working with this Power Station Alpha and working with Cobra. But Cobra is tying up loose ends, and you can see her through the scope. She gets assassinated. Now, is she assassinated by the Baroness, or the Baroness was just there to witness it happening? She says in a previous panel that she was meeting up with Zartan to tie up a loose end, which I believe is this one. But in this panel, you hear... You see Hawk yell Barbara, and then you hear off. He shot her, and then you see like 3 people there, and it looks like 4 men, and there's a gun on the ground. Even though you're looking through a rifle scope, and you can't tell who's who. Who are they restraining? Are they restraining? It looks like they're restraining the person in the hat here. And now, did this person kill Barbara? Or what? I don't know. You can't tell. It's really not, So anyway, she's been assassinated and she's dead. The last panel here, we've got Anthony comes in and talks to his mother and says he just saw us, basically, I'm telling you I saw it, and she doesn't believe him, but she's really happy that things are back the way they, way they were. You have a nice way of showing it, lady. Anyway, doesn't believe her kid, doesn't go outside to see, obviously there'd be debris falling from the sky from the destruction of Power Station Alpha, but let's not go check and make sure our kid isn't lying to us. I mean, he looks so much older than a kid who would be, just telling stories to his mother. I don't know. I thought that was really dumb to even have that part. And then, Hawk is here, and he was so in love with Barbara after the 2 days fling that they had, and he's so broken up and upset about what happened. And there's the epilogue. Barbara Larkin is dead, and, Hawk loved her. Ugh, I could have done with those last 2 pages. Let's keep it to the Autobots and the Decepticons fighting, and the G.I. Joe and Cobra working together, and Cobra double-crossing them, and that. Let's keep it to that. And how about we, make it more clear as to who actually killed Barbara Larkin? Obviously she was a loose end tied up by Cobra. Not that anybody could have, gotten to Cobra through her or anything. I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous to me. But anyways, this miniseries is over and done with. We're moving on tomorrow to the next issue of Transformers, which is going to be number 27 in the series. And we get back to, what the Transformers comic does best, is big giant robots. And we have a really big giant robot who's going to be part of that issue, the next issue. Anyway, it's Drew Bennett from Big Damn Kid. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as Big Damn Kid. You can find me here doing videos every day. You can find full write-ups about this on BigDamnKid.com. And if you like and subscribe, then you can get all the information every day, because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a video every day of all of my Transformers. And tomorrow I might even show you a little bit of some of my Transformers collection, because I went over to my parents' house and went to the attic where I've been storing a lot of them, and kind of give you a little show of what I found up in the attic. Now, I didn't find everything because it was hard to get to it all, and it's kind of dusty and dirty up there because it's an attic, and it's really more of a crawl space. But I'll show you a little bit. You might see some surprises, some different figures and stuff. And eventually I'm going to get to all of my Transformers that I have and do a little review of each one of the individual figures. So I appreciate you watching this far, and I hope that you've been enjoying it. See you tomorrow.